is Ballad of Blasphemous Bill.
I took a contract to bury the body of Blasphemous Bill Mackay, wherever, whenever, or whatsoever the manner of death he die. Whether he die in the light of day, or under the peak-faced moon, in cabin or dance hall, camp or dive, in muckalucks or patent soon, on velvet tundra or virgin peak, by glacier drift or draw, in musket hollow or canyon gloom, by avalanche, fang or claw, by battle, murder, or sudden wealth, by pestilence, hooch, or lead, I swore on the book I would follow and look till I found my tomb was dead. For Bill was a dainty kind of a cuss, and his mind was mighty soft, on a dinky patch with flowers and grass in a civilized boneyard lot. And where he died or how he died, it didn't matter a damn, so long as he had a grave with frills and a tombstone epigram. So I promised him, and he paid the price in good Chico coin, which the same I blew that very night down in the tenderloin. Then I painted a 3-foot slab of pine, here lies poor Bill Mackay, and I hung it up on my cabin wall, and I waited for Bill to die. Years passed away, and at last one day came a squaw with a story strange of a long deserted line of traps way back on the Bighorn Range, of a little hut by the great divide, and a white man stiff and still, lying there by his lonesome self, and I figured it must be Bill. So I thought of the contract I'd made with him, so I took down from the shelf the swell black box with a silver plate he had picked out for himself, and I packed it full of grub and hooch, and I sung it on the sleigh. Then I harnessed up my team of dogs, and I was off at the dawn of day. You know what it's like in the Yukon wild when it's 69 below, when the ice worms wiggle their purple heads through the crust of the pale blue snow, when the pine trees crack like little guns in the silence of the wood, and the icicles hang down like tusks underneath the parka hood, when the stovepipe smokes break sudden off, and the sky is weirdly lit, and the careless feel of a bit of steel burns like a red-hot spit, when the mercury is a frozen ball and the frost stalks to kill. Well, it was just like that when I sought out to look for Bill, on the awful hush that seemed to crush me down on every hand, and I blundered blind with a trail to find through the blank and bitter land. Half days have crazed in the winter wild with its grim heartbreaking woes, and the ruthless strife for a grip on life that only the sourdough knows. North by the compass, north I pressed, river, peak, and plain. Pleased like a dream I slept to lose, and I waked to dream again. River and plain and mighty peak, and who could stand unawed as the summer blazed and the cold stand undazed at the foot of the throne of God. North, north through a land of crest, shunned by the scouring buttes, and all I heard was my own harsh word in the whine of the Malamutes, till at last I came to a cabin squat built in the side of a hill, and I burst in the door, and there on the floor, frozen till death, lay Bill. Ice, white ice like a winding sheet, sheathing each smoke-grimed wall, ice on the stovepipe, ice in the bed, ice glimmering over all. Sparkling ice on the dead man's chest, glittering ice in his hair, ice on his fingers, ice in his heart, ice in his glassy stare. Hard as a log and trussed like a frog with his arms and legs outspread, I gazed at the coffin I'd brought for him, and I gazed at the gruesome dead. And at last I spoke. Bill liked his joke, but still, oh darn his eyes, a man had ought to consider his mates in the way he goes and dies. Have you ever stood in the Arctic hut in the shadow of the pole, with a little coffin 6x3 and a grief you can't control? Have you ever sat by a frozen corpse that looks at you with a grin and seems to say, you may try all day, but you'll never jam me in? I'm not a man of the quitting kind, but I never felt so blue as I sat there gazing at that stiff and studying what I'd do. Then I rose and kicked off the husky dogs that was nosing round about, and lit a roaring fire in the stove, and I started to thaw Bill out. Well, I thawed and thawed for 13 days, but it didn't seem no good. His arms and legs stuck out like pegs as if they were made of wood. Till at last I said, it ain't no use, he's frozen too hard to thaw. He's obstinate, and he won't lie straight, so I guess I've got to saw. So I sawed off poor Bill's arms and legs, and I laid him snug and straight in the little coffin he had picked himself with a dinky silver plate. And I came nigh near to shedding a tear as I nailed him safely down. Then I stowed him away in my Yukon sleigh, and I started back to town. So I buried him as the contract called, in a narrow grave and deep, and there he's awaiting the great clean-up when the judgment sluice head sweep. And I smoke my pipe and I meditate in the light of the midnight sun, and sometimes I wonder if it was the awful things I'd done. And as I sit and the person talks, expounding on the law, I often think of poor old Bill and how hard he was to saw. Those are 2 times I made a little error on that.